welcome to Hex Creek Paints. My name is Sean and welcome to my madness. So for today I thought I would do one of my orcs and try something I've never really tried before. I thought I would do a zenithal highlight just to see how it works and if I actually enjoy it. Now I'm going to start off with a base coat of Caliban Green. And I have tested out a few different strategies for doing orc flesh, and this is the one that I've actually really come to enjoy, and it's just a process of trying to perfect it. It's going to be a base coat of Games Workshop's Caliban Green, and I'm going to be adding in just Vallejo's Flat Yellow in small portions and just start building up the highlight for about like 5 or 6 different layers till I get really nice yellow green at the end for the highlights. Issues that I've always had was trying to keep everything neat, and doing the zenithal highlight I kind of have been forced to be as neat as possible just to try and make sure that I don't screw it up. basic bone color, which is Xandri Dust mixed with a little bit of Vallejo's Ivory, and just build that up. I think I do 2 or 3 layers before I feel that it's good enough. And then for the actual lips, I've always had issues getting the lips right, but I finally got it pretty good with a watered down pink horror by Citadel. Because my orcs are part of the Deathskulls Clan, I'm going to be doing a base coat for all the armor bits that I want to be blue in a purple. The purple that I used was Naggaroth Night, and I built it up in about 2 layers before I started adding Kalador Sky into the mix. A very heavy dosage of Kalador Sky. I wanted to make the blue really pop, but keep the purple in the recesses as much as possible. And to highlight, I just added a little bit of pure white from Vallejo to the Kalador Sky to finish off the highlights. It's at this point where I actually don't finish off the armor. I just get the purple done, and I start working on the leathery bits. The reason why I did this was I wanted to get the leather done because some of those could bleed onto the blue armor, and I really didn't want that. I don't trust myself enough and my brush strokes, especially with my setup for filming. So I started doing the leather, which is a grungy, sort of rotten leather. So to get my leather, all I do is add Vallejo's Chocolate Brown as the base coat, and then put in the Vallejo Flat Yellow in pretty heavy dosages to really pump up the sickly yellow. Because in my eyes, my orcs are too lazy and wanting to get right into the fight to properly do the leather working process, so they'll just skin an animal, put it on, and let it rot. About this time when I started to think more on how I actually enjoy the zenithal highlighting. Once again, I feel that I am not at a painting level, skill level, to actually take full advantage of it. I actually enjoyed some of the highlights that I got, and some of the shadows turned out a lot better than I thought. But one of my biggest issues is in some of the recessed spots, you can still see little hints of white. And I'm not, normally with those spots, doing the black undercoat, it just looks like pure shadow, and I'm happy with it. It doesn't show up. So I had to do a lot more cleanup after the fact, to where I had to have the model right up to my face in order to get this looking halfway decent for my skill level. Will I stop using the zenithal highlights? No, I actually think I'm going to keep using them on some things, mainly my orcs, just because I don't have as much of those, and it can all be utilized in a uniform pattern. So, all in all, I enjoyed it, but I've still got a lot to learn with it. So for the bandages and all the wrapping, I really don't want to add more different colors. I just don't want to crowd everything up. So what I do is I take my exact same bone color and just mess around with the ratios a little bit till it looks a little bit brighter and cloth color rather than a brownish bone color. So now we get to the part of the model that gave me the absolute most difficulty, and sadly it's the simplest, the pants. It was supposed to be a reddish orange, and I was using at first Volatile flat red mixed with a little bit of my black ink, but for some reason it just wasn't coming out right. And no matter how much I tried to work with it, it just kept giving me a lot of coverage issues, so I started using my Mephiston red and mixed that in, and it really didn't help me either. Eventually, I did manage to get it working right, and I started adding my little orange color, which was Troll Slayer orange. So for this part, it was just cleaning up a little bit, making some of the straps black using just Vallejo black, and I added a little bit of that white just to make it a grayish color. And now we're getting to the end of the model. It's just getting all the metal parts down, so my standard mix of Vallejo, aluminum, and black ink. for an orc. So I decided to pull out some of my rust colors and try and rust that up a bit. So to start off, what I did was I made a little bit of a wash using Volatile Model Air, the color wood, and just heavily diluted that with water and just slapped that all around the model, all the metal bits. Then while that was still wet, I came in with the Vallejo Model Wash Light Rust and just slapped that on before I started doing a dry brush of just pure aluminum to try and brighten up the edges a little bit more, but keep all that nice rust. Now, I'm not gonna lie, doing the dry brush is probably like the scariest part, because it does have a tendency to flick the metallic pigment all around, and I really didn't want to get that on like the grungy leather or his face or anything else, so it was a pretty stressful moment. What is a good orc without a lot of good old blood splatter? This also kind of turned out to be a little bit more annoying than I wished, but I used Blood for the Blood God, first stabbing at it with a old destroyed paintbrush, and then I attempted to do the flicking off the blood with a toothbrush. All that kind of did was turn my thumb red. So to counteract that, I just got pissed off and started stabbing at the model with the toothbrush with all the blood on it. Kind of fighting each other, and the counterpart to my orcs would probably be my Tyrant once I start getting those all painted and built up better. But this is going to be using a cork base, just building up a tan color by mixing black into Xandri dust and adding a little bit of the ivory in to brighten that up. I also cut up a bit of a cheap dollar store paintbrush, drill a little bit of holes in, and shove some of the bristles in to give it a little bit more life. No model is complete without the black rim.